السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد، اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد، اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وأنعم على حبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. It's beautiful to be back again with my two shuyukh, Shaykh Osamah and Shaykh Yasir. May Allah bless them both. And it's wonderful to be back with everyone listening in and attending online on Friday and later on, alhamdulillah. I did just want to start off again. I haven't had a chance to really talk to my shuyukh for the last week or two. How are you guys doing?
فضل من الله ونعمة يا مولانا. الحمد لله تعالى على فضله وإحسانه.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah wa shukr lillah. Rabbana ibarak ya Rabb. It's good to see you both, and it's always good to be around people that you love to be around and you get good from. You get khair from them. You know, this is the good stuff. You know, صحبة الصالحين. Alhamdulillah. So,
Alhamdulillah.
Sayyidina Umar said that there's nothing in this dunya that's really that worthwhile other than some ibadah and the suhbah of the salihin. And suhbah of the salihin means the companionship or the friendship of good people. So, you know, there's we tend to like stress out a lot about life and everything that's happening, you know, politically and socially and at home, and you know what we want and our future and our jobs and our kids. But you know, there's this dunya really. It's a place that's it's actually far more simple than we make it out to be, and all those have, like, you know, the prior predecessors, when they talk about the dunya towards the end of their lives, they're always indicating these things. You know, it's, or even not even during necessarily the end of their lives, but you know, this dunya is simple.
Yeah. I will say, like, quite often, I just to be honest, I dread having to get on and do these sessions, right? Because they're weighty and they're long sometimes, and it's not easy to always you know, have something to say during long weeks. But I do genuinely get happy when we get on and I see the both of you, and it does. That's like the best part of it, is that, you know, normally in our day-to-day lives, Shaykh Yasir and Shaykh Osamah and I don't really get a lot of FaceTime, especially given the fact that Shaykh Yasir is not physically around us. And so it is nice to get, you know, a good hour plus of seeing you guys and getting to have direct conversation with you. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, it is. It's and we only pray that we have more opportunities to see each other and spend time with one another, and you know, may Allah bring us always together for khair ya Rabb. Allah bring us together in goodness.
يا رب يا رب اللهم آمين. الله يجمعنا بعباده الصالحين وينفعنا بهم. I remember that you know, I came across you know, some طلاب علم and some shuyukh, you know, in my journey in Egypt, who would make that prayer, you know, make that dua. اللهم اجمعنا بعبادك الصالحين. Oh Allah, gather us with righteous people. Oh Allah, allow us to benefit from righteous people and benefit from their goodness. You know, it's something that our righteous predecessors always coveted. You know, there are some special people in this dunya, and if someone searches, you know, with sincerity and ikhlas, perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless them to build a relationship with a special person, and that'll be, you know, a means to goodness in this life and the akhirah, you know. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with that.
Ameen.
You know, Shaykh Osamah, that you know, I think a lot of times people struggle with the idea of, like, you know, where do I find a good friend? Where do I find like a righteous person? And you know, I was talking to someone the other day, and I was telling them, you know, I think good, you know, a really good person is far closer than you think. And what I meant by that is, you know, very often the reason why we find ourselves a little discontent with a number, or if not many of the people that we have in our networks, it's because we have very often unrealistic standards. and we have usually a very like self-centered way of looking at people. I'll explain what I mean by self-centered. You know, I was telling someone, because this person was criticizing this person and that person, and they don't really care for this person too much, and they don't care for that person too much. And I know some of these people, and he wasn't saying it in a backbiting way. He was just saying, like, how he's struggling. And I was telling him that, well, that person is that person an evil person? He said no. Is that person like someone who is a liar or a thief or nasty, like qabih? Do they have objectively bad, evil qualities that being around them is real harm? Or is it just that la ya'ti ala hawak? Like, this is not someone that you really just kind of, gel with, mesh with. You don't, this kind of doesn't, fit into some bill within you. He's like, yeah, more like that. I was like, so that's really more on you than it is on that person, because that person is a good person. It's just that your quote unquote preference is otherwise. And I told him, I said, you have to challenge yourself to see goodness in people, because people very, very, very often are good. There's a lot of good people around. And don't allow your self-preference or your personal preference or your desire to control so much of the people that you let into your life, of the people that you love, the people that you can care for, the people that you can connect with, because those are plenty. It's just that we have sometimes an idealized understanding of what, a righteous companion is. Very often there's the person it's the person who's very close to you. That's not evil in any way, shape, or form. It's just that someone you're not really,
But in order to do that, though, I feel like one challenge that I think we run into quite a bit is I don't know that people have like this outstanding, like this huge idea or this bigger than necessary idea of what a righteous companion is. I just think people are too demanding. How do I put this? They put too much stock in being and enjoying their time with the person based on their own preferences, right? So
exactly.
There are plenty of good people that I like. I can tell you personality wise, I don't align with these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I find them to be wonderful people to be around just because they're good people, right? But we don't find the same things funny. We don't find the same things interesting. We don't handle, decision making the same way. We don't enjoy the same things. So it's not as easy to sort of like, it just requires a little bit of like, I don't have to be like at the height of, I don't have to be having all this fun when I'm with them.
Yeah.
But I do want to be around them, and I can keep them in my life because I know I can trust that they mean well. Especially if there's
That's
someone
exactly
who fears
what I
Allah.
mean.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, and that's actually that quality is a quality of the people of Jannah, because there's a famous story from the Seerah where the Prophet is sitting with the companions in the masjid, and he says, يدخل عليكم الآن رجل من أهل الجنة, that right now will enter upon us a man from the people of Jannah. And one of the companions, was kind of, really. And so one day, the second day, third day, the same incident happened. Upon you will enter a man from the people of Jannah, and this man walks in. So on the third day, the Prophet, the companion, asks this man, says, do you mind? I'm having some problems at home with my father. Can I come and spend a couple of days with you? And he said, of course. It's the right of anyone to have at least 3 days with their Muslim brother or sister. He goes and he kind of observes the first day, doesn't see anything special. He prays Isha, prays some witr, and goes to sleep. Like nothing unique, nothing out of the ordinary. Actually, less than maybe what he himself does. Second day, same thing, doesn't see anything. Third day, same thing, doesn't see anything. Then the last day, he goes to him. He says, I have to be honest, I don't really have a problem with my father. I just wanted to come and like be in your company, because the Prophet ﷺ said, that you're a person of Jannah. And he said, so what exactly? I don't see that you do anything unique. He said, yeah, well, I mean, this is who I am, but the one thing that I do is that before I sleep, I don't carry anything in my heart towards people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something very powerful. That's very freeing, by the way. It's a quality of the people of Jannah. So, there's because there's rahmah built into that. There's mercy, there's love, there's care, there's forgiveness. I mean, you need to invoke a lot of spiritual emotions to maintain a heart that is just free of hate for people. Um, and so, this spiritual heart is one that, it enables him to be very light and caring and open to people. um and so that person is liberated, is not tight-chested, at night and during the day, and constantly super sensitive to everything that's being said, or that person did this and this person looked at me that way and this person didn't say this to me, and then أنا حامل أنا حامل منه, like I'm that person. No, I have an issue with them. Why? Because 2 years ago they didn't say salam to me. It's like, well, that's on the spectrum right there. I mean,
But honestly, Sheikh, a lot of times people won't even be able to pinpoint that for you. Right? That might have
yeah,
been the starting point, but it just kind of like morphs into
yeah,
like 2 years of just misreading everything that the person has done or didn't do, or they gave him a look one time, they didn't say salam the right way the next time, right? So it's not always as clear cut for people as that. I can see Sheikh Osamah is ready to say something though, so before I make a point.
No, go ahead, Maulana, go ahead.
I one thing that's been on my mind quite a bit actually for the last week or two that relates to this conversation, and I feel like for a lot of us, the missing starting point is actually knowing ourselves well enough to do a lot of this stuff successfully, right? So we were talking a few minutes ago about being able to separate between like not meshing with someone on a personality level, but still being able to see the good in that person. But to be able to decipher that and to like differentiate that internally, you need to know yourself pretty well. Like, yeah, this is just a personality preference of mine. This isn't defined as like pure goodness, right? Yeah, I like a certain type of comedy, or I'm interested in a certain type of discussion. That's not inherently righteous or evil, right? That doesn't make me better or worse than people. That's just a personality trait. But what, here's where my morals are, and here's where my personality. Like, if you don't have a good sense of who you are internally, it's very difficult for you to differentiate that in other people as well. And I feel like a lot of us struggle with that first step of just being able to be honest with ourselves internally and sort of decipher all that for ourselves before we start to relate that to other people.
SubhanAllah, I think Maulana, just to add to that, like what Shaykh Yasir said earlier, I think that many people define friendship in a way that is fundamentally wrong. The friendship and companionship, and I think that a lot of people expect that their close circles would support them in what they want for themselves, what they have chosen, their beliefs, their views. In other words, friends for many people are supposed to be yes people, people that really don't push back against what you want, people that don't give you constructive criticism when you're mistaken. Of course, not everyone's like that, but I think that in general, it's a quality that needs to be cultivated, to be someone who's able to accept good advice when it comes. I think a lot of people, they take sensitivity towards that, like, well, this is what I want for me, myself, and I, and you're either with me or you're against me. And just defining things in that binary, I think sometimes that's part of the problem. Allahu alam.
I think that's a very good point, because it does feed into I think it's a reflection in many ways of some of the standards we have socially today, which is we've been far more individualized and like itemized as human beings, and then therefore we're also encouraged to do what pleases us, and and identify with the people that we want to identify with, because it's what I like. And that has been given a lot of it's been given a lot of prominence, and also it's been idealized. It's like you should seek out what you like and the people that kind of really affirm what you are and who you are and how you like to be and what you like to do. And that to me is far more tribalistic and hizbi. And then the problem is, I mean, you end up having infighting, and because it's all hawa. It's if you come into a space and what you're prioritizing is your desire, you're always going to end up,
But if I
fighting with people and having issues.
If I can just go ahead, Shaykh.
Yeah, just to add to this point, sorry, Maulana, but there's like a hadith that exactly emphasizes the direct opposite in terms of, what you should really covet in your inner circles. What should you really covet? The characteristics you should be looking for. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إذا أراد الله بالأمير خيرا هيأ له وزير صدق إذا نسي ذكره وإذا ذكر أعانه وإذا أراد الله بالأمير شرا سوءا أراد له هيأ له wazira. I forgot the exact wording, but in other words, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if Allah wants goodness for the Emir, he will facilitate for him an honest right hand, who when he forgets, he reminds him, and when he remembers, he strengthens him. And if Allah, وَإِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِالْأَمِيرِ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ, that's what the hadith, that's the wording of it. If he wants other than this, and if he decrees otherwise, then he will surround him with individuals who won't inspire him, who won't remind him when he forgets, who won't support him when he's doing something good. So I think our deen gives us the opposite disposition in terms of what I should really be looking for. I should covet a voice that actually goes against some of what I believe in, because maybe perhaps this will help me become a better person.
Yeah, but I would want to just parse some of that out, right? Because we do also have a concept in our religion that there at some of the higher levels of connectivity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your likes and dislikes will be based on what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what displeases Allah, right? And we do have a lot of commentary in our tradition about sticking with Muslims, sticking with people of like values, right? So what I think Shaykh Yasir and Shaykh Osamah are getting to, just so we parse out the language, is not that you shouldn't, you should seek out people that you like to be around, right? Like you don't have to force yourself to hang out with people that you don't like, right? But what are you basing that on, right? So if I'm basing that on values and principles that are laid down by the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger, then I won't go astray. But if I'm basing that on this is what I enjoy, this is what this is my identity, right? As I've been taught to sort of identify myself, and that's what I'm going to stick with, then you fall into the problems that I think Shaykh Yasir and Shaykh Osamah are referencing. But if you're basing it on the love of Allah and the love of His Messenger, that's where we started, right? There are people who we might not mesh with personality wise, but I recognize that they love Allah, love His Messenger, and they try to live by that. And I would want to be around those people, even if some of the smaller portions of our likes and dislikes don't match up.
I mean, so this is precisely the point that I was initially making, which is, we have to realize that the bar is not so high to have good people around you. Most of the people around you are good people, and they're people that you can gain tremendous amount of benefit from, and khair, and you'll get nourishment, social, emotional, spiritual nourishment by being around good people. I think the pushback is against really the standard of culture that says, you have to curate people around you that really conform to your sensibilities as they are. And I think that's where we become so deprived. We become really deprived, and we miss out on so many good people because of that. That's why you have, I think, one of the more common tropes that you hear people saying today is like, well, no one really understands me. No one really knows who I am. And people say that very, like, confidently. It's like, no one really understands me. No, you're very understandable. Don't worry. Like, no, no one is that complicated, by the way, to not be understood. Alhamdulillah, we're all very understood. We're all, we're all pretty much a straight. I'm serious. I don't mean to. Now, someone may be listening, like, no, you don't understand. Like, no one really understands who I am. What I want to tell that person, I tell all of us, is that no, we're all very simple people. We're pretty much the same general thing. We have the same general emotional apparatus and spiritual, like, we are simple beings. And وهذا من فضل الله تعالى علينا. We make ourselves complicated, because we overthink and we over kind of theorize what we should be and what we shouldn't be and what should be around me and how people should talk and how people shouldn't talk and how people should behave and how people shouldn't behave and how people whatever and what should this and what. We get very charged up, and we place all of these conditions around ourselves and on people, to then make it complicated. And then when you find yourself really struggling to mesh with a person or gel with a person, it's very often due to takalluf on your own personal side. Like, I've put up a high degree of complex conditions and stipulations for someone to have a relationship with me that's meaningful. And then people will fail, not because they're bad people, they just didn't fulfill the standards and the conditions as I see them. And so then I write them off and I push them away, or I stay away from them. You'll see this happening in families. Someone who will stay away from their entire family not because their family is evil, it's just that their family doesn't conform to how they feel about things or how they like things to be. And so they say, no, my family, I can't be around them. It's like, why can't you be around them? Do they spit on you every time you?
They don't understand me.
Because they don't understand me, exactly. Because they say
they don't understand me because I want to do this, and they won't tell me that I'm right for wanting to do this.
Yeah. Exactly, or because I need this or I need that, and I like this, and that's not what's happening there. So I need to. But when I go to this group of people, or I go to this friend, I go to this online group or chat or whatever, they validate me, and so I prefer them. I don't like my family for that reason. Well, that I just want to point out that that's more on us as individuals than it is on people, because people are people. I don't want to say that it's some absolute seamless thing, because the Prophet ﷺ says something which I think is good for us to understand. Like, I'm not saying there is no pain or hardship or difficulty dealing with people. No, people, it can be difficult. But he says, Al-mu'min الذي يخالط الناس ويصبر على أذاهم خير من المؤمن الذي لم يخالط الناس ولم يصبر على أذاهم. The believer who engages people and is patient with the harm that may come with that is better than the believer who does not engage people and is not patient with the harm that may come with that. So there is absolute virtue in being around people, being around the people who are close to you, and finding deep amounts of nourishment in that.
Yeah. Yes, subhanallah, Maulana. I really think that's so sad, though, when that becomes the reality of people. It leads to isolation. And the consequences of that isolation, sometimes just the difficult characteristics that a person, or certain expectations that a person puts for themselves in their relationships, it isolates them from a lot of goodness that people can offer. Now, I guess just to empathize with people, I know that a lot of these feelings sometimes come from trauma. So I think it's important to realize that some of these subjects we're dealing with are like multifold. Sometimes it's the difficulty and characteristics of the individual. Sometimes it's the interests, the standards, the expectations they have placed, are really unfounded, not based on anything that's really worthy of merit. It's not based on principles. It's based on hawa, like I said. Sometimes it's based on trauma, and I think that sometimes this is a consequence of the first two decisions. Like, all right, the standards I've put given me a certain category of individuals. The characteristics I have as a person have isolated me from the potential goodness that so many people out there have, because I there's something called being worthy of a good friend. My friends aren't supposed to be worthy of me and my companion. I should look at it the other way. If I'm really a good person, Allah will inspire me towards good people. That's just the reality of dunya. But then the consequence of the first two is people get traumatized by certain things that happen in life. And I think there's a line of poetry by Imam Shafi'i that describes this. He says, ترى الإخوان كثير حين تعدهم ولكنهم عند النائبات قليل. That trauma that some people have is that when they make the standards and the qualities, the characteristics that they place in friends, bring them the lower quality type of people. When they're in trauma and they're experiencing difficulty, they realize that, oh man, I actually have nobody. Where are all those people? Where's Fulan and Fulana and Fulana? These individuals who I invested so much in dealing with them. Now everyone's left me in my time of difficulty. So I don't know what you guys would think about that addition to the topic, but I really think sometimes it's what you surround yourself with.
I think, Shaykh Yasir started this conversation off by that example when he was advising someone a few days ago. And I think he started off by asking, did these people actually do something harmful, right?
Yeah.
Which is a big difference, right? So
which is the condition, yeah.
Yeah. So if someone's doing something harmful to you, right, and they're causing trauma in your life, and I mean that legitimately, not they upset me because they didn't like the way I looked or something like that, but they were really they're belligerent people, they're manipulative people, they're abusive people,
or they just abandon you when you experience trauma, to the other side of it.
I don't know. I would say something to that. I think sometimes, one of my mentors, an older brother figure in the community here in New Jersey, used to have a saying, and he's actually recovering now from a surgery. May Allah make it easier on him, inshallah. He used to have a saying where he would say that, when my expectations of myself towards people are very high, and my expectations of other people towards me is very low. Right. Meaning that I don't expect people to go out of their way for me to be pleased with them. Right. Because I don't know people's circumstances. Maybe it's not easy for them to do what I expect them to do for me. But when I'm on the other side of that, as a brother to them, I'm going to put myself at a very high standard, that I'm going to go as much as I can out of my way to help them. And I'm going to assume the best of them. Maybe maybe they have their own difficulties that Allah has put them through that hasn't allowed them to react the way I would want them to react. And so there have been plenty of times in my life where I may have expected, a certain person to reach out more, to check in on me a little bit more, and they didn't do so. And my reaction was more like, oh, maybe, everyone has a million things going on in life. It's very plausible that their kids haven't been sleeping and they haven't been sleeping, and so they're mentally they're not really there, right? Emotionally, they're not able to really muster up the emotional. And there could be a million and one reasons. So yeah, I may be going through trauma and someone hasn't lived up to the expectation I have of them. But I in my own life, I would say I'm not going to judge that person too harshly, because I don't know everything that's happening in that person's life.
No, I think that's exactly kind of where my mind is. It's, I think people will do themselves a lot of benefit by lowering their standards and not placing so much, not having such high expectations that are bound to fail. And that doesn't mean that people are garbage. People are just crap. Just people are horrible. No, that doesn't mean that. It just means people are people. No, because I think we arrive at these conclusions very often, and it's not. What I'm saying is not. By the way, I'm not criticizing people. No, it's all of us. We're all susceptible to overthinking, to placing very high conditions, standards, having very specific expectations. And when people don't when people don't meet those expectations, we end up having a very visceral reaction to that. And so, there is a profound liberating and beautifying quality that comes with al-afu was-safh. Just forgiveness and letting things go, and not not oh no, he didn't, no she didn't. It's like it's okay, just let it go, forgive it, it's just let it pass. No, but my dignity, and they should have, and they shouldn't, and I shouldn't have to. Don't be so charged up. It's just, if it's not pure dhulm, or pure qubh, nastiness, or pure evil, just let it go. Really learn to not hold people, as Ustadh Zaied was just saying, to such high expectations, because then you'll pretty much never succeed. And that doesn't mean that the result of that is not to say, well, yeah, because people are just miserable. No, that's not the result. The result is to say, alhamdulillah, people are people, and كل حد, as Egyptians say, كل حد على قده. Everyone is just at their capacity. Like, we're very simple beings, and I think we tend to overcomplicate the relationships that we have, because I'm thinking about specific people I have in my life that are very close to me, and they have good relationships with, like, hundreds of people. Like, not dozens of people, I mean hundreds of people. And they're always lighthearted, and it's simple, and it's always simple things. There's nothing complicated about these relationships. It's just a get together over some breakfast, some food, a small little halaqa, a little gathering, checking up on a person, and there's no major takalluf. It's just simple, beautiful relationships. And I have a few people in mind who are deeply nourished socially and emotionally, because they're able to maintain such a simple disposition with people, right? Very forgive. Like, you'll never hear these people talk about how bad people are. No, it's just alhamdulillah, kullu khair, rabbana yajib al-khair. They talk to someone, they're alive, they're vibrant, they're happy to see them, genuinely just happy to see people, happy to see their Muslim brother and sister. And I think this is how this all started, because Zaied said, I'm just happy to see you both. And I thought, subhanAllah, that's such a beautiful feeling to have, to just be happy to see your Muslim brother. Like, we should challenge ourselves, when we're apart. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, may COVID be lifted and we're able to spend more time and see each other, ya Rab. When you see people in the masjid, just be happy to see Muslimin. I'll tell you something. Wallahi, whenever I've been to Umrah or Hajj, and you see all the Muslimin, I remember last time I was at Hajj, just standing. I remember standing on top of one of the streets leading into the Haram in Mecca, and just there was like endless people, just as far as the eye can see, human beings, and people of all shapes and sizes and colors and everything, scents and smells and orientations and speeds. Really, I love all these people. I love this ummah. It's just a beautiful ummah. And I know people will say, no, when I went to Hajj, a'udhu billah, there's people from this country and people from this country, and it's smelly and it's nasty and it's disorderly and I don't know what.
And no wonder why the Muslim world is backwards.
No man, a'udhu billah, shuf al-Muslimin, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. It's like, just relax. يعني ما هو لا مؤاخذة خش وشو بص في المراية. Like, if we all look in the mirror, we're not going to see something too pretty. بنصلي على النبي يعني look at, just see that people are beautiful. Like, wallahi, with all the imperfections, there's beauty. With all the stains, there's beauty. With all the smells, there's beauty. Wallahi, there's beauty in this ummah. And I don't want us to write that off, because this leads me to another topic, or should I? Not topic. It's like an like a point, like a secondary point to this topic. There's so much harsh criticism that happens online of Muslims towards Muslims, right? And we've standardized a culture of real critical analysis of each other, and we've put certain standards in our minds of what is a critiquable point in someone's life, and we then filter everything through that standard, right? So it's like, excuse me, Shaykh Osamah, what's your stance on this political issue? Sheikh Osamah, doesn't have an opinion, or Sheikh Osamah opines in a way that's contrary to how you feel. Sheikh Osamah, a'udhu billah, like, man, it's these fake shuyukh, who are apathetic and quiet and مش عارف إيه كذا كذا.
Wolves in sheep's clothing, huh?
Yeah, wolves, and it's all that, and it's like I get it. This may be a contentious point, and it's a point of disagreement or a point that maybe you feel strongly about. But that doesn't mean that Sheikh Osamah or Ustadh Zaied or Sister Fatima or Sister, Jennifer or whoever is an evil person. It just means that on a matter of ijtihad, a matter of assessment and personal opinion and perspective, and even maybe on some objectively like disagreeable points, there just seems to be no seeing eye to eye on it. It doesn't mean that Sheikh Osamah is an evil person, or Sheikh, Ustadh Zaid is an evil person, and they should be written off and they should be flushed down the drain. No, it just means, that on this point, I really don't see where they're coming from. I don't know why they have this opinion. I really feel strongly about this opinion. But Allah musta'an, like إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. And so I feel like we've placed so many communal standards on ourselves that are really dismembering our community. It really is like, and I'm seeing this in there's a resurgence of a religious warfare like that's happening that I don't like at all. It's very remnant of the 90s. There was
but
really,
it's far. I mean, the 90s wasn't like all academic, but this one is even far, to just use a pejorative term. It's a far stupider one. Like there's a lot of just, I'm just being blunt here. Like a lot of the commentary that I see is just, Twitter snark, right? Or like, or online snark, wrapped up as an opinion, right? Like from when I remember when we were in college, and these battles were going on about, different
Salafi,
orientations,
Sufi, and all that kind of
and
stuff.
different madhahib and so on. There was at least some attempt to know, to study, to quote. I can't believe I'm looking back at those a little bit more fondly now, right? Because those were horrible too. But like what's happening now is a lot of just like online troll methodologies, wrapped up as if they're some, like in a garment of religious language. Like it's not very highly sophisticated, even, just to be blunt. And like, so the goal seems to be just being critical, not actually being right or being truthful, right? It just seems like I'm more successful if I can be more critical, more trolly, more snarky.
But I don't the only thing I'll say to that is I don't think people who are necessarily invested in this are trying to be a troll or snarky. People have actually assumed positions where they believe they are the callers to the truth, right? That they are, saying what needs to be said, that other people will not say. They are truth, warriors, and they are justice warrior, and they're saying what needs to be said. And what I'm indicating here is that, if your disposition, and if you're following speech or rhetoric or people who what they constantly do is as I said, critique and condescend and write people off and shame and insult and mock, this has nothing to do with the harmony of the Muslim community, like the beauty of the Muslim community, the oneness of the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why would we have so much discourse that talks about اعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا? It is literally a command not to be disparate and disconnected. Well, what happens if I have an agitator every single day, yelling and cursing at other Muslimin and talking about how people are so faulty and wrong and they have to be exposed and they're evil and they're this and they're that and this and that and whatever, and everyone else is like some quietist, apathetic, agreeable person, whatever, doesn't want to speak the truth, doesn't want to care about the truth, we're going to hell in the handbasket, everything's super alarmist, the world is going to come to an end. Ya mehda, It's not that crazy out there. I mean, it's
I like the adjectives you're using, مولانا.
ما هو
حاجات
it's
حلوة يعني.
the point is just we have to relax. We have to relax.
What do the
Teach the
Muslims say? خف
إيه،
شوية ولا إيه؟
خفف شوية خفف هدي أعصابك, relax. يعني this tashanug, this really charged, uptight disposition that people are carrying around, that I'm sure is like causing ulcers and all sorts of like irritable bowel syndrome. Just relax. Just اهدى كده. رخي أعصابك. Let your nerves relax. Yani
Well,
you have an opinion, say your opinion. You have a critique, say your critique. You have a thought, say your thought. But the charged, aggressive hatred based on very and this is why is this connected to the previous, because it's based on very specific standards and criteria that I have assumed to be absolute, and so they have to be present. If they're not, مفيش كلام, there's no talk. Like, if you're not living up to these standards, I'm going to write you off. And yeah, of course I'm going to shame you, and I'm going to attack you, and I'm going to put you on blast, and I'm going to do this because you have to be. Why? Who said? Like, what made you or I the arbiter of absolute truth to be so certain in creating this, online Yawmul Qiyamah, Yawmul Hisab, where now we get to have like the court of public appeal, and every day you write a post and you mention names and you say who is and who is not, and you shame this and you shame these people, or you shame categories of people.
So
These
again, though, Sheikh, like just to push, like
push.
I'm on the side, just so no one misunderstands when I'm pushing back. Like I firmly, from a lot of what I've seen online, I really think the goal is to just be snarky and to get, because that's what gets you eyeballs, right? That's what gets you traffic, is to be snarky and condescending and critiquing, right? Now I'm not trying to question people's hearts. I don't know what's in people's hearts, but the behavior suggests that the real goal is to just be snarky, because snark is what gets me recognized. But if I was to push back from their perspective, they would tell you, no, the stuff that we're critiquing, this is about aqidah. This is
But this is
about,
the
like,
point I'm making.
this is, yeah, but they'll tell you this isn't my standard, right? This is like La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That's the standard I'm going after.
Well, everyone
right?
can claim that, like that, but that's a superficial claim. But I know that. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it. Cut me off.
No, I'm saying, like, well, that's precisely my point. I know everyone is speaking from a perspective of, I'm speaking the truth. Like, you can't argue with me, because all I'm saying is the obvious truth. And these people and those people and that person and this individual and that group and all of them, they're not on the truth. They're not on the truth. Now, who's like, you're the truth as you have perceived to be the absolute truth? That's my point. Like, if we leave it so subjectively and arbitrarily up to the individual to define, and then to find some cronies who are gonna like just affirm their narrative. It's like, yeah, no. Yes, what brother so and so is saying, that's the truth. It's also, see, he says it too. So what? We all can do that. Everyone online can find a group of people in like solid numbers with credentials to say and affirm what I'm saying. But that's not the point. The point is the compromising of the harmony of the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether on the degree or the level of me as a simple person at home with a simple family and a simple job, and I'm compromising the basic beautiful relationships that I have around me because I have these very specific standards of what should be and so on, and I expect people to be a certain way. You take that and you expand it all the way, quote unquote, up, or probably all the way down, because it's very often that worse into this, because it is worse. I think people have to be very careful about what they're doing online. I mean, when you're sowing corruption on earth, and you're really sowing seeds of discord, like, wallahi, it pains me to see Muslims who really were celebrating a type of a Muslimness and a spirit of Islam and a love for the basics of this deen, la ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, and the stories and this person, that person, and to see now how the common person, quote unquote, is writing people off and and saying, yeah, these people are not even really that Muslim, they're not Muslim, they're not this, they're that, their aqeedah is faulty, their this is faulty, their care about issues are faulty, on all sides of the spectrum, whether it's the religious side of that perspective or the political side, because people are written off equally as much for, you know, not being politically engaged in a particular way, not caring about this, or not caring about speaking truth to power, and not doing this, not doing that. And these standards, these are not the standards of living a simple Muslim life, of saying La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. You know, ruhama'u baynahum. Prophet ﷺ was that. That was his description. Ruhama'u baynahum.
هو مولانا سبحان الله يعني I would يعني and for everyone listening, and I really hope that it's just clear that, you know, a lot of the focus that, you know, we're trying to convey is about mode of behavior and about attitude. And you know, I think that sometimes people might not realize the significance of that, you know, and say, well, you know, as long as the content of what I'm saying is legitimate, we could discuss, you know, methods of delivery. That's like something secondary or tertiary. But you know, in actuality, our deen has made method of delivery, mode of behavior, attitude front and center. It's not about necessarily what you're saying. A lot of the times it's how you're saying it. You know, and you know, in fact, you know, our deen gives such significance for packaging, packaging, you know, what you want to say. How should you thoughtfully package it? The Quran is all about that. You know, if you see someone operating like with this sort of haqq attitude, like you said, but their whole persona is completely divorced from what the Prophet ﷺ himself said is fundamentally true about the believers. What the Quran fundamentally says is the mode of operating for Ahlul Iman. Then there's something really wrong there. There's you know, it's packaging your content is so critical. You see this in the Quranic delivery of it, even in the way the Quran is set up. You know, when it comes to the sifat and the characteristics of the people of Jannah, like Shaykh Yasir was saying before, and like we were emphasizing throughout, is there is a certain attitude towards goodness, and there's a certain attitude towards wrongdoing. The attitude towards goodness is highlighting the excellence of others, the benevolence of others, appreciating it. And you know, this is something I wanted to say earlier, but like, you know, even when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he speaks about those who supported the Prophet ﷺ in the early days, when everyone else was rejecting or was too fearful to stand alongside the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca. The Quran says, لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل. That, you know, so magnifying the goodness in people and the good that they do, highlighting it. But when it comes to wrongdoing, oh, don't set your expectations too high. Overlook. وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. And رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُم, like you said, very merciful in their dealings with one another. Like the Prophet ﷺ said in hadith about Ahlul Jannah, كل ضعيف متضعف لو أقسم على الله لأبره. The people of Jannah are those individuals who are just, you know, the wording says da'if, and that means weak, but it doesn't mean the essence of weakness. It just means like someone who is like easy to deal with, is someone who's not a tyrant at heart, not an aggressor, not very stubborn and set in their ways. Mutada'if, hayyan, layyan, is very simple, easygoing. These are all modes of behavior. Yeah, we could count dozens of ayat and a hadith that emphasize this. This fallacy that's in the minds of so many people, as long as what I'm saying is right, everything else is secondary or tertiary, it's absolutely bankrupt when it comes to our deen. It's absolutely false. You know, it's all about mode of behavior. It's all about method of delivery, attitude. That's what makes all the difference, you know, between the people of truth and the people of falsehood. Yeah, wallah alam, man.
But see, so Jazakallah khair for that, Mona. I think that was very beautiful. And you made me think of the hadith, al-Muslimu man salima al-Muslimun min lisanihi wa yadihi. You know, the Muslim,
mode of behavior.
Yeah, but so it's like what is a Muslim? Man salima al-muslimun min lisanihi wa yadihi. That Muslims are safe from this person's tongue and hand, right? From their harm, from their adha. That people are safe, not no one wants to talk to this family member because if you give them nasiha, they're gonna like thrash you. Or if you talk to this person, you give them nasiha, they're gonna put you on blast. So the same nonsense. But Maulana, I'll say, behavioral is one thing, but even assumption of truth is a whole other thing. And that's the point I was trying to make. You're saying these people will say, well, as long as what I'm saying is true. No, what you're saying is not true. How about that? You're saying what you're saying is wrong. What you're advocating for is wrong. Your claims are faulty. And وَأَنْتَ لَسْتَ أَهْلًا, you're not in the position to sit there and create so much shawshara about what is true. Every كل من هب ودب can walk. Everyone.
What's shawshara, Sheikh?
Shawshara.
فسر يا مولانا فسر.
Sorry, shawshara is just like sparks and like noise, right? It's just like what happens when metal like hits metal, static, noise, sparks, right?
جعجع.
Ja'ja. Yeah, it's like everyone yuhsinul ja'ja. Okay, everyone can sit there and belt out loudly and say what the truth is, and الحق والكذا والظلمة وهذا الظالم وهذا الفاسق وهذا يحسنه الجميع. Everyone can walk around and put on like a really big hefty jacket of I'm just speaking the truth. But ومن أنت? Like, من نصبك هذا المنصب? Who put you on that pedestal? And نحن كلنا. I'm not saying there is no truth. Of course there is a truth. I'll be very honest. I personally, I disagree with sometimes many people when they're talking about certain topics, or other even shuyukh who are friends of mine or close to me. I'll disagree with them. Sometimes I'll disagree vehemently, like really, really disagree. I don't agree at all with what this person's saying. But wallahi yushhidullah, I love them. Wallahi al-azim, I love them. I love them because at the end of the day, it's simple for me. نحن كلنا مساكين على باب الله, as Egyptians say. We're all simple beings at the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're trying our best to live in this dunya in a way that is pleasing to Allah. And I'm trying my best to teach what my teachers taught me and to convey and relay and so on. And there's others doing what they're doing. يجتهدون ويحاولون, and they're speaking and they're exerting themselves, and very often without solid methodology or guidance or whatever, but they're doing what they're doing. And I see them as being sincere people, and they're trying. And I think they should be told they're wrong when they're wrong, if they're wrong, right? I think they should be advised and so on. We all should be advised. I should be advised if I'm doing something wrong. I should be told, hey, be careful. You have to be mindful of this and so on. All of us need that. But to turn this into a type of toxic jahili tribalism, where now I want to see you destroyed. Like, you, for your disposition, you have to be taken down. And I'm going to take you down because no one else wants to take you down. You've put yourself on a pedestal of judge, jury, and executioner, of qadi al-qudah. You are now the judge of all judges. You are Amirul Mu'mineen. You are the leader of the believers. And you are the Khalifa who has the power and the authority. And you have the requisite conditional knowledge and status to make those decisions. That's what everyone's turning into online, saying, Ana unassib nafsi. I actually, because most of these people, by the way, they're self-made. They were never propped up by an association of scholars, mathalan, to say, okay, this person is going to have that position. No, this person just decided, you know what? I'm sitting here all frustrated and annoyed. No one is saying anything. Okay, you know what? Bismillah. Let me start calling out and blasting out this person and that person, this person, that person. I gain a platform, I gain following. Now I have authority, and I have power, and I have a voice, and I have legions of followers who are going to affirm me. And I've affirmed myself. May Allah protect us from that. And I really sincerely advise everyone out there who is either doing this or is consuming this, and to step back, because you don't want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment having smeared and false and attacked on whatever standard you may think are true, right? But really harmed Muslimin. You know, you rattled the saf of the Muslimin, صفوف المسلمين على أي شيء, right? Because you yourself didn't like something you saw, and you're assuming that this is absolute evil and falsehood and batil, so you have then the authority to destroy people. And so you know, once again, we took it all the way to the online level, right? We took it all the way down to the online level because it's really purgatory. But coming back to just the simple day-to-day stuff, it's the same thing. You know, people say, well, like, no, I'm never gonna apologize to this person. I'll never even deal with them. Why? Because they offended me. Okay, I mean, they offended you. Khair. Sometimes sometimes we offend each other, right? I'm not saying someone is a nasty abuser, like a filthy abuser. That's one thing. But this person, did you see what they did? Did you see what they said? How should I even I will never even put my hand in their hand. Wallahi, abadan, right? Because we have this long-standing 20-year disagreement or 30-year disagreement because in 1980 something, you know, he did something that I didn't like. And so I hate him and I will attack him ila yawm ad-din, right? It's like, relax. Like, who? I mean, really, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Just relax. Let it be. I mean, okay, the guy made a mistake. This sister made a mistake. This family member made a mistake. Just relax. But people, because what ends up happening, it's so nafsani. You know, it's so shaitani. You know why? Because the shaitan, أنا أسجد لده. Me, I make sujood to him.
Shaykh Yasir, it's really fun to watch you, by the way.
أعوذ بالله.
It's really
Shaitan said أعوذ بالله.
When the Egyptian starts coming out, it gets wonderful.
I make sujood to Adam. Astaghfirullah. It's like, no, I mean, it's like, and so, but he got so, I'll close, I'm sorry. Yeah. He got so hung up on what? On something that was so viscerally hurtful to him. How could you ask me to make sujood to him? How could you ask me? You know, like, come on, it's me, right?
Yeah.
And so he took it as now a point of revolution against Allah. You know, he went to fight with Allah because of him. And all I'm saying is, once you and I center ourselves in the narrative, that's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Right? It's really the point of destruction. The shaitan, once the shaitan decided to center himself and not Allah, he destroyed himself. He became, you know, mal'oon, cursed. وَهَلَكَ نَفْسَهُ. He destroyed himself. أَهْلَكَ نَفْسَهُ. Sorry.
No. Barakallah feek, Shaykh. I you know, listening to both of you speak, like one thing that kept coming out to me, because I can see, let's just say there's someone listening who has engaged in this behavior or supports people who engage in this behavior, especially online, right? And I'm sticking with the online example because the online example like does cover itself, it dresses itself in like religious discourse, right? Like we're standing for religious truth. And so people can walk away and say, well, we're not centering ourselves. We're centering La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And they'll hear what Shaykh Osamah said about like, it's all about mode of behavior and attitude. And they'll say, no, why? Yes, all that stuff is important, but haqq is really, at the end of the day, Dinu haqq, wallahu haqq, right? This is the truth. There's no other way to look at it. You know, one thing that kept jumping out when you guys were speaking to me was that the fundamental not the fundamental, but one of the first things that get overlooked by these people is that this message is sent to you for you, first and foremost, right? Like I need to make sure that I am on al-haqq as much as I possibly can be. And one of the hallmarks of people who are struggling to be on haqq is a sense of humility, right? A sense of recognition that I may not know everything I think I know. And I might not be right, even if I feel it in my bones that I'm right, I may not be right. And and that's why, like, I kept saying, like, when I look at the behavior screams of someone who just wants to be snark for the purpose of being snarky. Because even if you're speaking something that's objectively true, it's always shocking to me that so many people can speak with such confidence on topics that I there's no way they know everything there is to know about it. But the way they speak about it is with this, like, this is what Shaykh Yasir kept going back to, and Shaykh Osamah kept going back to, this air of arrogance that, like, I know. And that's why Shaykh Yasir kept saying, who put you in this position, right? Who put you? It's because you're assuming that your understanding of haqq is ultimately the endpoint, the only possible understanding of haqq. And there's no data points that you may have missed. There's no circumstances you may have missed. There's no details that you may not have understood fully. That beginning point is destructive for you first and foremost. And so you're missing the whole point of the religious discourse, of the message of Islam, if you're going down this road of arrogance, right? And one of the signs of a sincerity will be, I'm going to be confident that, inshallah, I think I'm doing my best to understand the truth, but I have to have a level of humility. Maybe I don't understand everything. Maybe the brother or sister that I'm attacking has some knowledge that I don't have, or they're seeing a perspective that I haven't seen, or they've experienced something that I haven't experienced that's coloring their understanding of this. And that approach will always present itself with a level of forgiveness, with a level of love, with a level of mercy, and with a level of confident humility. I feel I've gone through all the steps to make sure that what I'm saying is true, but maybe I missed something. That produces a very different discourse than the discourse that we're seeing online, right? So listening to Shaykh Yasir and Shaykh Osamah speak, what kept coming back to me is, if someone's listening to this and they think, well, no, I'm making Allah centered. The problem is, if the way you're communicating is with such anger and such arrogance, then that's a very deeply troubling sign that you internally are not humble. You're arrogant, and this is coming from a place of arrogance. And that's why you may think you're speaking haqq, but in reality, you're destroying yourself.
Yeah, Maulana, subhanAllah, I think, as we said, in the very beginning, this subject is multifaceted, and I think that when you look at it, it's definitely not all, and I did not mean this earlier, it's definitely not all about the method of delivery, attitude, mode of behavior. It's definitely not all about that. But there's so many different aspects one needs to consider, and what's the end game really? Is it, and this is something you said in the when you introduced this, am I becoming a person who's just criticizing to be a contrarian? If that's the case, well, how much of the haqq have I really embodied? That's the other consideration of this. So, what's the end game? Am I really trying to win over hearts, change people, bring positive change, or am I trying to do something else? The other thing is, how much of this quote unquote haqq is actually influencing and impacting me? Because the Quranic depiction is that you can be a person who has truth, but you're merely a vehicle for that truth. You have absolutely not benefited from it whatsoever. So, that's like a call to look within. All right, if I really have haqq, all right, what is it doing to me? Really? And, it takes a lot of objectivity and honesty, being honest with oneself, and holding yourself accountable, and really having a certain level of fiqh and understanding of what are the what's the essence of the prophetic character. So that's when you look within. Then it comes to assessment of the content of the haqq and the truth. The Prophet ﷺ, with his example as the ultimate carrier of truth, the Prophet ﷺ, in his in the way he projected that content, did not do it in such a manner that made it all about the content. As the content is important and that needs to be assessed, I need to realize it's all coming from a great deal of jahl and ignorance, Maulana. That usually you'll find these attitudes coming out from individuals who hardly know, hardly have studied, hardly have invested. Usually anyone who has any level of sincerity and invests their time and effort in trying to investigate and research, they'll come out on the other end very, very humbled. And that's what our scholars tell us is one of the nata'ij of studying the content, right? but then the Prophet ﷺ, as we said, in the method of delivery, and so it's multifaceted, so many different aspects.
Yeah, I think it's important on that vein to understand, if people want to really think about this and put it within a Quranic context, well, but we have the Prophet ﷺ telling us, وَمَا بُعِثْتُ إِلَّا لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I have not been sent except to perfect the best of character. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet ﷺ, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَظًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَمْ فَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were harsh and hard-hearted, they would have fled from you, right? So we have to understand that there is a Quranic and a prophetic discourse that clearly illustrates the need for rahmah, for gentleness, for care, for humility, for ihsan. See, ud'u ila sabili rabbik. Call to the path of your Lord bil hikmah, with wisdom, wal maw'idha al hasana, and with beautiful expressions, ihsan, right? وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, and be even more excellent and beautiful in your jidal. Which part of these three qualities? Well, there's four things here, by the way. Number one, ud'u ila sabili rabbik. Call to the path of your Lord. Not call to your path as you see it to the Lord. No, call to the path of the Lord. With what? With wisdom. You have to employ a lot of wisdom and use a lot of beautiful, excellent language. And if you find yourself in argumentation, then you have to even exude more beauty and excellence. You tell me, is the Quran too compassionate? Is the Quran too quiet on the truth? Is the Quran not willing to speak truth to power? Is the Quran not willing to say it as it is? No, the Quran is teaching us how to be. And we're losing the mark here. It's like, Shaykh Osamah said, what's the end game? On the day of judgment, what are you? Because see, Shaykh Osamah, أنت معايا؟
معاك قوي يا مولانا.
What's the hukum? Because you're a sheikh and you have all those books. What's the hukum? Okay, أنت معايا؟ ركز معايا مولانا. سؤال كبير, سؤال صعب. Okay? You may have to pick up one of those books. What's the hukum? What's the hukum shar'i on da'wah?
What do you mean?
On the individual, on a normal individual. What's the hukum shar'i on da'wah?
Is there a fard on me, for example, to do da'wah?
Is there a fard on you individually to al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy an al-munkar wa da'wah kadha? Do you have to do it, or is it fardu kifaya?
Of course, it's dependent on the case. There's shurut and there's conditions in which one can do amr. There's certain situations where the person should not address anything at all. In general, like you say, that it's a wasf of the ummah. The ummah has this characteristic of enjoining good and forbidding evil, and it's, as you said, it's not fard al-a'yan, it's fard kifaya.
So there, Shaykh Osamah is a big sheikh, and he just said it. Okay. It's fardu kifaya, right? So it's an obligation over. Now, Maulana, let's say there are sometimes da'wah may be fard ala al-ayn upon a person, but for the most part it's ala kifaya. Now, but what are the things that every individual is fardu ayn alayhi to do? Like you have a direct and immediate individual command and obligation to do. There's many things that as each of us as individuals are obligated to do. Well, first off, I have to go and assess, if going back to Ustadh Zaid's point about like if I'm someone who's saying, well, I'm just speaking the truth, relax. Go check your obligations. Go check the huquq that people have over you, the rights, right? Are you actually being an upright, upstanding Muslim man or woman, fulfilling your obligations, fulfilling your duties, giving people their rights, actually being a Muslim in your home, right, with your family, pursuing things that are khair, with your neighbors, bringing relief, supporting, helping, giving? Are you being a Muslim in the sense of, or have you decided that your Islamness is a function of how much you are able to say online about how Muslim you are, right? To be a Muslim is to live in surrender, to live it. Qum قم فأنذر قم الليل إلا قليلا قم فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله افعلوا الخير قل اعملوا فسيرى الله عملكم. Do, Allah will see what you do good, go in the way of Allah. And so فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله, go move swiftly in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to be a Muslim. You have to live Islam in your day-to-day realities. And the people who choose to be public about their calling to the truth and Islam, they've immediately put themselves in harm's way. I want to point that out. You really put yourself in a position where your hisab is exponentially multiplied upon you, because you've now, your hisab, meaning your accounting on the day of judgment, is exponentially multiplied. Yawm al-Hisab is a big day. It's such a painful, may Allah protect us, and we seek refuge in Him from the day of judgment, because it's a big day. There's a lot of hisab on that day. And if I am engaged, because people do this on a family level, someone will start to spread a rumor about this person did this and this person did that and this person's wrong and this person should be and this person shouldn't be, and attacking and you do this on a communal level, attacking people in the community, attacking this person, attacking the sheikh, attacking. You take this on a public level, a social level, an online realm. If that's the business that you're involved in, don't forget there is hisab, and you're going to be held accountable for all the stuff you're supposed to be doing, right? And then this stuff that you are doing, it's a very, very, very tight rope that you're walking, especially when your business is attacking individuals, writing off Muslimin, right? Constantly sowing discord by aggressing. This is heavy stuff, and I hope people appreciate what we're talking about here. And I pray that each of us really look in the mirror, reassess what it means to be a Muslim, what it means to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to come to terms with the fact that there's far more harmony and love and care that is required amongst us, because bifadlillahi ta'ala, after all is said and done, even the critiques of this type of stuff, I'm saying, and all of these people are still beautiful, and there's khair. Like, I don't think, that's why even someone who's doing something very wrong that I disagree with, I'll still try to look for the khair in their faces. Sometimes I look at someone who's very aggressive, and I'll try to see the khair in their face. I'm sure this person does good, or tries to be good, or there's something. You have to try to see goodness in people. So, forget about even the people who are doing that, just the masses of people who are just masheen ala halhum. They're just kind of walking around. Being very loving and caring and forgiving and open of those people will lead to a far, I believe, healthier communal orientation. We'll find a lot of social nourishment. We'll find a lot of emotional and spiritual nourishment just being around Muslimin and absorbing. Leenu fi aydi ikhwanikum, the Prophet says. You have to literally meld yourself into your brother's hands and kind of mold yourself into them, and they mold to you, and you kind of orient a little bit to them, they orient a little bit to you. Inshallah timshi. ونسأل Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala salama. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, shower us with His peace and His grace and His mercy. And may we all truly, and I pray that, may Allah grant us all guidance. Allahumma hdina ya Rabb. And may He guide us all to what is true and what is beloved to Him. ويجمعنا عند حوض الحبيب صلى الله عليه وسلم. And He brings us together at the basin of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. ويجمعنا جميعا كل من قال لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله, عند العرش ومع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Wallahi, something that just struck me. Some of the most beautiful shuyukh and the people that I love, senior, that I've met in my life, what was so common on their tongue? Dua for the ummah, in the most beautiful of terms. They would always be so loving of the ummah and forgiving of the ummah and seeking khair for the ummah and wanting the whole ummah to be together and to be, because they're عندهم صدر رحب, they have a very welcoming, open chest that just is expansive. Don't be dayiq. Don't be tight-chested. You know, Jannah is just not going to be for you and your 3 friends. You know, Jannah is wasi'ah. You know, and Wallahu al-Kabir, Allah is big. You know, and His rahmah is all-encompassing. We want, wallahi, we want khair for all of humanity. We really do. We want guidance and khair for all of it, while affirming that there's truth and there's falsehood and there's right and there's wrong and there's justice and injustice. Allah ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. Barakallahu fikum. Those are my last words for the session, so I'll leave the rest to you guys.
And in the, you know, in your words, Yasidi, a few different topics came to my mind that I think are worth investigating further. You know, one of them is just like the fiqh of priorities that they call, as they call it, al-awlawiyat. You know, what have I really given greatest significance in my life, and on what basis have I done so? That discussion on how to you know, weigh different factors in my life and the space that they occupy. I think that's one. And another subject that came to my mind was just the qadiyat al-sunan al-ilahiyya, those certain trends, those certain laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made manifest in this existence. And the reason why it came to my mind is because you know, our deen gives us clear guidance on the fundamentals that lead to prosperity for human beings. And you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sunnah, and His way is جارية في خلقه. قد خلت من قبلكم سنن فسيروا في الأرض. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says these sunan, these realities, these constants that recur in the lives of people, they're there. You just need to decipher what they are, understand really what certain actions, what path do certain actions do you do down. And that, you know, that's the thought that came to my mind, is like, often when you examine, you know, we see certain consequences, results that are symptomatic. They're symptomatic, right? We might not see the whole picture, but every single one of us knows the ins and outs of our souls, or at least I should know. If I'm honest with myself, I might be oblivious to it. I might be oblivious to what's really going on inside, what's producing my thoughts, my critiques, my outlook, you know, my engagement. I might be oblivious to what's causing that, but there are certain sunan, you know, and if I look very carefully, I might examine and I see certain inconsistencies. Because again, you will not, this whole thing that we were discussing today about you know, certain manifestations that are very toxic when it comes to you know, describing people, situations, truth, falsehood, all the rest. You will see on a very personal level, deep level, that those toxic results are stemming from a whole lot of other problems that perhaps maybe not many people know about the individual who's experiencing that, but he or she might really know deep down inside, okay, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. You're saying that it's, you know, I know deep down inside that I am projecting myself as this haqq-oriented person and this truth sayer and this Mahdi, this great savior for the ummah. But when it comes to the priorities, the fundamentals, the basics, I might know deep down inside that, you know what, I might be negligent of a few things. I might be presenting myself in a certain way, but deep down inside, I know I might have severe problems in the fundamentals of my practice, my family relationships, my dhunub and ma'asi, sinfulness, certain diseases that I know are, you know, symptomatic in my heart, and other things. And it's a very vast subject. But again, ultimately, you know, anyone who's genuine will find the answer if they look deep down inside. There's no way that toxicity can be like sort of an anomaly, that everything else is good, all priorities are in place, and someone's really living up to the essence of what they're calling, but they just happen to be an extremely toxic presence in society, online or in person. They have a very, very negative disposition of people, and there's no way that wholly unprophetic disposition will not come from a whole lot of inconsistencies in the person's personal life. Is exactly what I'm trying to say. Allah alam, Allah musta'an. Ghafarallahu lana wa sahhallahu ahwalana. Allah musta'an.
I know I can, because I know my shuyukh. I know they're leading me into a wrap up. But there were two things that jumped out at me. I'll try to get through them very quickly. Again, just imagining people listening to this who either consume this quite a bit and think highly of it, or they themselves engage in this. One other telltale sign for me about the negativity of some of this behavior is that the people who often spew this stuff will never, ever accept any criticism in return. And every time you give back criticism, they will deflect and they will strawman. So like, one of the hadith that kept coming up when a few steps back in this conversation was a hadith of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam talking about some of the Khawarij, right? When they're like an arrow that's shot through an animal that you're hunting, right? The arrow goes through and comes out and it has nothing really left on it, right? So the remnants, and he's saying this is the way that their Islam will look, right? So they go through Islam in one side, out the other, but there's no actual impact on them, right? And so like something like this will be mentioned, and the response from the people, the haq sayers, will be like, look what they're calling us. They're calling us Khawarij, they're calling us deviants, they're calling us, and there's no like reflection at all on whether or not, some of this might be true. Or they'll come and they'll say, all you can do is comment on my adab. You never actually can address the points that I'm bringing, right? You never sit down.
Don't give me the adab card, man.
Yeah, like all you can. So there's never a moment where they'll stop and say, you know what, maybe there's, even if like 1,000 people of good character and of good standing will give them the same advice, the response is always, no, you're just not responding to the actual issue. This goes back to one of the reasons why I keep saying all of the behavior seems to point to the goal being snark for snark's sake and trolling for trolling's sake, right? Yeah, go ahead, Shaykh. Go ahead, please go ahead.
No, I just, because I think every time you say snark for snark's sake, I think you may be like, I know what you're saying, but people may process it as, I'm not just trying to be snarky, so just stop saying that, right?
Yeah. I'm sure they're going to say that, and I'm going to say all of your behavior. But this is, and the reason why let me just push back a little bit. I just want to push back a little bit, Shaykh. I fully agree with you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect me from being the type of person who doesn't see the beauty in people. But quite often, this is how we confuse ourselves, and this is how we fool ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And the way to unfool yourself, the way to get yourself out of your own self-delusion, is to look at the behaviors that you're putting out and see the telltale signs, right? So if someone is giving you the same advice over, or 1,000 people are giving you the same commentary over and over, and your response is to say, they're just all wrong. There's no self-reflection. That's a deep sign of delusion. And it's a deep sign that your real goal is misplaced.
Okay, that's different. Yeah. So I think that's wording that illustrates what you're saying more than, because snarky sounds like, nah.
That's what it is. That's
a nice word.
I'm being the blunt one today.
Yeah. No, I see I know what you're saying, but when I'm illustrating, and I know I said I wasn't going to talk anymore, but you forced me now.
But you said that privately. You didn't say that on air.
Yeah. I actually think the reason why people don't, care to listen to these nasayah have adab, or be careful. There's people before you who've done things like this, and they kind of, because when a person is in a combative mode, when a person is like in warfare, they're not really thinking about those qualities. They have a mission, so they become very utilitarian. Like, I need to get the truth. I need to get my mission accomplished, right? So you become, when you're in combative, like aggressive mode, all these nasayih or thoughts, they come off as just empty. They come off as
there are arrows that you're trying to deflect. You're putting up your
tertiary.
shield.
No. I have a mission I have to accomplish, and so poof. I can throw that out of the way. Dismiss this because I'm full steam ahead, and I see this as a disposition that's very present. It's hard to be self-reflective when you're so combative, and you're in constant warfare. Like when you're constantly flinging missiles, right? And then you're having some response. Like where are you gonna have the space to be self-reflective? To have like type of calmness and quietude and serenity, and sit down and think and contemplate, وحاسب نفسك, and remain silent. Give yourself space to remain silent. You don't have to be commenting on every issue, every news article that comes out. You have to comment on it. You have to keep on sharing your narrative and sharing your story and showing how pervasive it is, and how vile and how decrepit our world is becoming, and how crappy everything is, and how evil and how disastrous, and it's all doom and gloom. It's all dystopic. It's all that's where if the person is in that mindset, that is the Kharij, that is that spirit. The Khawarij did not see any more khair. They just saw a bunch of a'da, and they saw they saw the singularity of khair.
A'da are enemies. They saw
a lot of enemies, and especially within the Muslim ranks, that there's a bunch of false enemies who are wrong, who must be done away with.
Yeah.
And they singularize the truth in them and those who affirmed them. And so it's and that's the real danger.
I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Maulana. I think the way the other thing to address here is, and I think that one of the common trends in social issues, and the way they're addressed by people is they're often addressed in a very reactionary way. That you find some go to the extreme left and others come pull to the extreme right. And it needs a certain level of fiqh to really be able to see the positives and the negatives in both narratives, and objectively and impartially deal with content. It's very difficult to do that. I think that's part of the problem. Those people who keep on saying, "Oh, don't pull that adab card on me," in the end of the day, we recognize, or at least we should recognize, that there are certain deficiencies in whatever issue that we're dealing with today, and there's always room for improvement. But do I really want to be part of the solution, or do I want to augment the problem? And I think that's what a lot of the times, people who are trying to rectify something they see deficient fail to see. Well, will my actions augment this issue? Will it compound it? Or will it actually provide some solution? Now, if I don't have my priorities straight, if I really don't understand what the prophetic disposition and the prophetic character symbolizes, then I might fall short and end up contributing to the problem, unwittingly. And I really might want a solution, but I might actually be making the issue a whole lot worse. That's what Shaykh Yasir was talking about, the whole Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar issue. There's a reason why it's a community obligation. It's fard kifaya, it's not fard ayn. There's a reason why the scholars, they prohibit addressing certain issues in certain situations. They prohibit it, even if it's a truth. And those situations, one example would be is if that person's involvement will only make the situation a whole lot worse. So there's a certain fiqh there. Am I part of the problem, or am I unwittingly contributing to the problem, or am I really giving a solution? That's Allah alam. That's what I would add to that.
Yeah. As always, there's much more pushback I would want to do, but
you had one more critical point you want to make, or no? You're not going to make it?
No, inshallah, we can. I think the first point that I made, I think, wrapped it up more than enough, inshallah, and we went through it. So we can. I think it's a good place to stop now. We've also now 2 weeks in a row, we did not get to the actual questions I wanted to ask, like the subject matter I wanted to ask, and we got into this conversation around giving and receiving advice from people. And I think we've gone a long time, so inshallah we can wrap it up here, and if the shuyukh allow, and we can pick it up next week, inshallah.
Sounds good.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, everyone, for listening, and I look forward to seeing some of the comments that might come from this, inshallah. And we'll see you next week. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.